it's kind of the ruggedness of it. It's just a little chopper, backpack type knife.
The third time this week someone's pulled a knife on me. It's by far the most pleasant experience.
Living in the suburbs as you do.
You'll know who I run with.
Crystal Lake gangs will get you.
Wow. I don't even have that in
Keep it
Texas.
real.
Yeah. Gosh.
This June marks the 30th anniversary of the Advanced Laser Applications Workshop, a milestone event you do not want to miss. Connect with manufacturers and suppliers from automotive, aerospace, agriculture, and fabrication to explore what's new in laser technology. Join us June 13th through the 15th at the Suburban Collection Showplace in Novi, Michigan. Visit fmamfg.org to save your spot at ALAW today.
Hello, this is Dan Davis of the Fabricator Magazine. Welcome to today's episode of the Fabricator Podcast. Not thefabricator.com, as some have been saying.
But you can find it on thefabricator.com.
Yeah, actually you can.
Yeah.
And tell me that light's not green on that camera right now, Rafael.
It's red now.
It was green though, right?
I think he's messing with you.
Yeah, he might be messing with you.
Now he's just messing with me. Anyway, we're having some, the talent was having issues learning what colors meant not recording and recording. So
red means go, green means stop.
Yeah, I don't even know anymore. Anyway, Rafael Guerrero is joining us once again. He's with the Welder Magazine. How are you, Rafael?
Can't complain today. So
Yeah,
it's
so
been a
much
minute
fun.
since I saw you.
That's because all time is not linear. That means time is everywhere. So his minute could be 3 weeks.
Right.
Anyway.
It could be a soul. Isn't that a day on Mars? Or a year? I don't know.
I'm not quite sure.
We can cut this part out.
We should probably consult Matthew McConaughey on this.
It would be Matt
That was
Damon.
Matt Damon.
No, Matthew McConaughey was in
McConaughey's
Interstellar.
in the other one.
Oh, we're
Interstellar.
talking
I'm
about
The Martian.
Martian.
Oh, wow. I'm confusing my movies. I'm sorry.
There was somebody did because of Interstellar, because of Martian, someone did some quick calculation of how much money the U.S. government would have spent
To
on
save him?
just rescuing
much?
Matt Damon from space. I gotta look this
You
up.
care to let's just make a guess. How much money do you think it would have cost? Or they did save him?
$3 trillion.
Spoiler alert.
$3 trillion.
Wow. Man,
so
that's
it's
a
a
lot
guess.
of money. I'm going to say 150 billion.
900 million. A billion. That's a B. That would be The Martian, Interstellar.
I don't know. If they were going to save somebody,
Oh,
you
here we
probably want
go.
to save Matt Damon.
Here's a breakdown of how much it would cost. So, Saving Private Ryan, 100,000. Titan AE. I don't know that
I
movie.
thought that was animated.
$200 billion.
Is it?
Interstellar, 50 billion. The Martian, 200 billion.
This is...
Elysium. Remember that? That was another Matt Damon space movie. Matt Damon is really costing the U.S. government a lot of money.
I don't know. Who else would we want to spend that money on?
I don't know.
Well, so we need a rescue.
I mean, he is pretty important. He's a celebrity.
Yeah.
Don't minimize his contributions to the happiness of this world. So anyway, today's guest is Ronders of Ronders Wood and Metal Works. I'm actually cheating. He left stickers.
Yeah.
So you'll enjoy this conversation. He's a guy who works not only with metal but wood to create some really cool stuff. And it got us to thinking that obviously we talk a little bit about trees, as many of his customers actually have to cut down trees, particularly in the Chicagoland area where a lot of ash trees have bitten the dust because of those evil
The boars.
ash borers.
Yeah.
So families want something to remember their tree by. So it got us thinking about trees, and Gareth kind of pointed out a situation out in Virginia where somebody went and planted a tree in a pothole.
Yeah.
My comment I truly liked is that at this point, does this road become a roundabout because there's a tree in the middle of it?
Yeah.
That's what you said.
I'm fine with that. I prefer roundabouts to like traditional.
Yeah, you
intersections.
talk
do
about
like
something that's
roundabouts,
very
yeah.
intimidating but kind of useful.
Yeah.
I agree.
A lot of people can't figure it out though.
Yeah, especially here. People don't seem to figure out roundabouts.
So I'm originally from Louisiana, and I have visiting relatives, and they've started to introduce roundabouts there. And the issue they have is they want to break. So the whole idea of merging is not as big of a challenge because they're not going.
Right.
So it's not, I don't know if it's as efficient as it could be, but whatever. I don't know. It beats waiting at a stoplight, I guess.
Rafael, how do you feel about roundabouts?
I like them. I understand them. That's unfortunately, it's not me the issue.
Yeah,
It's,
right.
the other driver.
I mean,
Right.
I don't want to comment for you. It sounds like you're bragging.
I maybe
Like when you say
humble
you
brag,
understand
a
them.
humble brag.
Look at this guy figuring out a
Look at
roundabout.
Mr. Big Shot knows how roundabouts work. Way to go. My favorite, you ever seen the meme where there's a guy who just shooting through a roundabout and he just goes over the middle of it and he goes airborne about
Like a
25
ramp?
feet?
Yeah.
Old school Dukes of Hazzards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually, I think I'm going to do that before I die.
On a roundabout.
Yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
going to see what happens.
I'm
See how
surprised
much
that's on
on
air
your
I
bucket
can
list.
get.
That's on your bucket list.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it
I'm
is.
surprised it doesn't happen more.
Yeah. no.
People just saying like I panic attack and just drive right through the roundabout.
Yeah. Circa like late 80s, circa Dan Davis might have probably done that.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you a nervous driver when you first started?
I was an out of control driver. A lot of speeding tickets.
Oh wow.
No, I avoided some accidents, but a lot. Like I had probably, 12 moving violations by the time I was 24.
Jeez.
Yeah, one for doing 98 and a 55.
Okay.
Listening to Van Halen full blast.
I don't even know what it was. All right. Well, this has been awesome.
All right.
Okay. Well, enjoy this episode with Ronders, who has his company name Ronders, when his real name is Ron and Drycz. Is that right?
Dyrcz. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I got it.
Yeah.
There you go. Good dude and a good conversation. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
This episode of the Fabricator Podcast is brought to you by FabTech. Registration is now open for FabTech 2023. Join us September 11th through the 14th at McCormick Place in Chicago for North America's largest metal forming, fabricating, welding, and finishing trade show. Meet with over 1,300 world-class suppliers, discover innovative solutions, and find the tools you need to improve productivity and increase profits. Visit fabtechexpo.com to register today. And now back to the episode.
Welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis with the Fabricator Magazine, joined by Lincoln Bruner.
Hello.
Contributor to the Fabricator and also editor of the Tube and Pipe Journal magazine, a sister publication of the Fabricator.
Greetings.
Today's guest, and Gareth
Yeah.
Lager,
Yeah. Hey.
We have Gareth.
the guy behind the camera. We're being joined today by Ronders of Ronders.com.
Nicely done.
I had to walk myself through that because I didn't want to. You wouldn't think I would botch that up, but
He was trying to pronounce every letter in your name.
sometimes my mind gets ahead of my.
But that was a clever way to get people to pronounce your name correctly.
Yeah, well, it actually happened at the high school water polo locker room. The coach couldn't figure it out, so he just jammed it together, and we went from there.
Ronders.
You became a first and last name combination name, huh?
Yep. It's sort of a celebrity thing where you just go by one name.
I was about to say you'd be the first guest with that, so congratulations on that as well. Until our request for Beyonce comes through.
Yeah, right. We're working on it.
She's a welder in part time, right?
Yeah.
I
Right.
assume she's a woman of many talents.
I assume so too.
She has a lot of metal to work with all her awards. So maybe she
Yeah.
can sit down.
She's making all of her Grammy awards into a giant sculpture as we speak.
So Ron is involved in both metalworking and woodworking. And if you take a look at his website at ronders.com, you'll get a feel for a lot of the stuff he's into. And we're kind of chatting before as we're getting set up, talking about the wood aspect of it. I know we'll kind of explore some of that. But give us an idea how you got started with this. What's your business all about now, and how'd you get there?
Well, we got started a little late. I didn't actually realize that welding and fabricating was going to be my spot to be. Kind of messed around in high school shop class and took that for granted. We were doing the welds, we were getting the process done, but I was cutting up rebar when the instructor was talking about the next thing to weld up a Christmas tree or something like that. And then we kind of left that for a little while. We went into the carpentry, a few other trades, and kind of bounced around, and then finally got back into the welding and realized that this is where I'm home. This is where every time I touch metal, it's like magic.
Right.
You just resonated with you, huh?
Yeah.
What about working with the metal? Kind of like turns your crank. What made it come alive for you?
I think it's just like the majesticness of it and how you can take a sheet. If you just really think about the whole process, it comes from an ore in the ground. Huh. It's poured into whatever shape you can get, and then you fabricate it into something you couldn't, most people wouldn't even imagine. And the amazing part is that most of our structures are created with 8 essential shapes that come out of the steel mill.
Right.
There's even tube. You think that's a shape? Well, no, it's not. It's all sheet, and it's all getting formed into tube, and things like that. And
right. So when you were in high school, did you have a sense that you'd want a career like working with your hands? Because you had mentioned earlier you're a water polo player. I mean,
and when I was in high school, I was going down the art path. I was real hard into the art classes and things like that. I was doing photography for the local newspaper, shooting sports and music venues, things like that. And I thought for sure that was cameras and media. That was where I was going to go. And and then I got diagnosed with Crohn's. I got real sick there for a while, and I got weak. And I was always a athletic guy and everything. So being a weak person, all of a sudden it was like, who is this person? And kind of found myself, getting around the yard. And sure enough, the yard has so many ash trees that end up dying off that, you got to clean them up. So either you're going to spend thousands in an arborist or get a chainsaw. So that was the route I went with, and did that for a little while with a crew on the side, doing trees, cutting them down, just kind of building that strength back up, getting back to a healthy stage. And that's when I just started cutting trees into slabs and realizing that, hey, there's value in these trees. It's not just firewood and mulch like it is around here in Chicagoland. The arborist crews, they have these high overheads. They got to keep running, so they got to dump that thing of the truck of mulch and keep going. So they don't have time to say, well, we could cut this into lumber, and the whole process of all of that with the drying and finishing and all of that. So I took that on, and people love it. People love seeing what is actually inside of the trees that they've lived with on their property for so many years. Yeah.
Well, ash is such beautiful hard wood. I mean, obviously you get the baseball bats being made out of it, but just the finish of it and the fact that it's so smooth and can be made into so many beautiful things in the furniture realm. I'm curious in that respect, when it came time to start blending sort of the metal and the wood together, I mean, what sort of ideas came to you at first?
It all started with, how do you support this slab?
Oh,
how do you make a table base that's a little bit more creative? I've done all of them from just simple tubes stuck together to trying to figure out how do I do more fabrication and create the shapes that I see, but I don't see in the steel yet.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
That's really kind of how it's evolved.
How do you fabricate normally? Do you have a brake? Do you have a tube bender? What do you have at your disposal?
Yeah, so tube benders, roll bender, that's a big one. Just a tabletop, for flats.
Sure.
I've got smaller press brakes.
Yeah.
So I got a little bit of pneumatic power.
Cool.
Yeah, with the fabrication tools that comes the price tag. So we're slowly getting there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. And another question I had about the pieces themselves is, are people starting to come to you for commissions now more than you creating something on spec? Or tell me What gets you up? Is it the deadlines or is it the inspiration?
Well, when I started doing this, I was working in a fab shop, and we were doing production welding.
Sure.
And that is a fantastic way of seeing the process that needs to happen in a production shop. There's no time to waste. You got to get those welds done. You got a production level number to hit for the day, or hey, we'll get the next guy in here.
When was that?
Oh, about 5 years ago now.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So you're stacking dimes on a stick welder. And,
Yep. It was all MIG. And
MIG. Okay.
yeah, and just burning away every day. And I loved it, but the atmosphere wasn't the best. And you didn't really realize that right away.
Okay.
You just kind of become compliant in the job. You come in, clock out, and then I realized that I take the slabs from home, and when I get home from work, I was making tables, benches, and things like that just for fun.
Okay.
And that's when people were like, "Hey, I'll buy that bench.
Wow.
Actually, I want a table to go with that bench." Wow. And that's how it kind of just started. And then eventually the fab shop just kind of died off. We got laid off. That job ended. And I said, you know what? I'm making more in the 4 hours I'm working after work than I was going to work. Yeah. So why not just stay here?
Would you have made that transition if the shop had still been kind of needing your services?
Oh, that's a good question. Good question.
Being an
because
entrepreneur
the pay wasn't there.
Right.
The enjoyment in the jobs, it was kind of a crazy creative job shop.
Right.
So there would be fun things that come in all the time, and things you'd love to talk about with I built that, I built that. But being able to say, well, that's my name on that table, and but before I made that jump to say, okay, I'm going to go full time, I have a little bit of an entrepreneur, many attempts at bringing products about and things like that. So I knew, okay, this has to be serious. I got to have a business plan. I got to know what I'm doing. That way, if I get distracted, I can look at the business plan. And so I came up with a wall bar. And that is really my bread and butter. It's just a bar shelf that gets made out of reclaimed pine that I, scoop up from the arborists.
Right.
And pine, because it's the only thing I can afford to ship.
Yeah.
All of this gets flat packed and sent off with FedEx. But I can, for example, you guys want this room wrapped in a table, a 16, 20-inch depth table. Boom. We can do that.
We do. This one right here.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Orders in.
Yeah.
All right. Holding you to it.
Yeah. So then I've got the bread and butter that we pump out, daily, and then the creative projects, the big tables, things like that, they don't come in quite as much.
Right.
Now, I don't put the pressure on saying, I need 4 tables this month, that type of thing, and that's what kind of keeps it a little more fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
The wall bars is paying the
it's
bills.
It's funny how
and
you kind of describe, I think that works for a lot of shops in general, the sense that there's a lot of regular occurring jobs that kind of set the foundation, and then all the other kind of work fills in the gaps.
Yeah, and and that's the biggest thing is because in this world today, everybody wants to work for themselves. Right. That we all want the same story essentially, but you also need to realize that there needs to be that level of production that there's days where I'm like, I don't want to weld another bracket right now. I'd really love to hire a guy to do this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think, wait a minute, I'm just being stupid. This is my product. So let's lean heavy into it and keep going.
I'm going to expose my overindulgence in HGTV shows right now. We were talking about those shelving units. You're talking about like the exposed wood. Yeah.
Yep.
That's very timely to have that product.
Yeah.
If you were into great kitchen cabinets in Waco, Texas, you'd make a killing.
Yep.
Well, everyone's making like their fake ceiling beams now.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
How would you handle those fake ceiling beams?
It's funny with all of the faking out and everything. I've got a neighbor with a 1950s home, and they wanted a post. They've got these crazy posts up in the front, and they wanted them fixed original, right? The bottom was rotten out. They're like, we need a full timber in here. And I cut it off and realized that even in 1950s, they were taking 2x12 12s and
Right.
laminating them together. This is not a solid timber.
Yeah.
There's no need for solid timber. So, yeah.
That's fun.
So to Home Depot you went. And no. It's really cool that you have taken this kind of approach with your business, because when you have, well, you said you got the production work and then you've got these other creative things, but you've got a good balance. It sounds like that you've got the bread and butter. What do you like? What do you try to do to foster those creative juices? Some people play music. Some people go and visit other artists. I mean, what do you do to keep those creative juices alive?
A lot of times I will ride my mountain bike. That is my zen. That's my zen time to just kind of decompress, the zone out.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is definitely visiting other shops.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys were looking at it there, but just 3 weeks ago, I went and visited my buddy in Florida, and he's running his shop doing the same sort of thing, but he is making 2x72 grinders. Mm-hmm. And went to visit his shop and got to see how he's, his process. Mm-hmm. It's all about people, process, product, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so seeing someone else's process in their shop let me be able to see, well, I can increase this or that and bring a different process in the shop. Like, for example, I saw his tumbler. Mm-hmm. It can save me hours and hours of cleanup time, just getting a tumbler in the shop.
Okay.
And I've always known about, that's him. House-made grinders.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, super cool shop. He's down in Florida.
Nice.
Wow.
And
how did you strike up a relationship with him?
Instagram.
Really?
Yeah, it's all Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he's such an awesome guy. We've talked probably 2 times, Brian and I, and I said, hey, I really want a grinder, and I just can't justify, I'm not a knife maker or anything.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm seeing this grinder, and I'm like, hey, it could metal prep, take down the angle grinder use quite a bit, but I can't really justify even a DIY grinder. He's got a lower price point than the big guys and all of that. And even that I couldn't justify. So I'm like, hey, what can we do? And he's like, well, hey, come down and work for a week.
No kidding.
So sure enough, I worked for a week, and
that's awesome.
Sent back a grinder with me.
Wow.
And just the process alone. I mean, you went down for a $800 grinder. No, I went down for hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of knowledge. You know?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the context of your visit.
Yeah, and and that's
spin on
that's really what got me started. Is I'm sitting there in that fab shop and I'm listening to all the podcasts and I'm going, how are these people? I saw Fab Tech.
Okay.
These guys are just got Jimmy DiResta out there making benches.
Yeah.
For a week, just having fun.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, how are these guys doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, I hit up, at the time, Lincoln was doing an event out in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And little did I know, the organizer's main pain point was labor.
Okay.
He couldn't pull Lincoln's travel team away to do this show. And so I'm like, hey, if I foot the bill and get there and work for you, can I attend? He said, yeah, absolutely. Sure enough, I'm working right alongside Lincoln Electric.
That's awesome.
And by the end,
you got some of their gear too now.
By the end of the show, he's we cleaned up, right?
Yeah.
There's
and he's
no
like,
end to the possibilities.
These
right?
machines put in his truck, those machines put over there, those machines over there, and then that machine put in the back of your truck. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Like for good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, you looks like you
you're
did
a
clean
Lincoln
up.
guy now.
Unofficially?
Yeah.
I use Lincoln.
You can do worse than being a Lincoln guy. No.
So what kind of welding are you mainly doing? MIG now, or does it
MIG?
depend
Every
on
once in a
material?
while, I'll break out the TIG machine.
Yeah.
I got to do some aluminum here coming up, so I got to break out the TIG machine for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Same machine, multi-process machine, or do you have a separate power source?
No, I've got a TIG machine for that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So when you're in the middle of the creative process, I mean, is it usually something you're coming up with just out of whole cloth, as they say, or is it something that someone's asked you to do?
All right. So my most recent big table I've done, I went to their house about 3 years ago. They had the crew take down an oak tree, beloved oak tree to the family. You know, great grandpa planted the tree, and I mean, the wife is literally crying as they're cutting the tree.
It's
down.
a sentimental tree.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a big deal, and she's seeing the rest of it just get ground into mulch, and she's losing it. So sure enough, they found me on Facebook, and I took the trunk, slabbed it, and disappeared. Well, 3 years later, I said, okay, this is now kill dried. We're ready to go. What do we want to do? And they had no idea. They have a cabin up in Michigan. And I said, well, let's do a table up there.
Okay.
And they're like, okay, well, they literally no ideas. I said, send me some examples of what you might want. Nothing. So I'm like, all right. It's just oddly enough, the family was going up to Ludington, and they're in Pentwater. Well, Pentwater's 5 minutes away. So I'm like, well, what's the address? Let me see. Went to the cabin and looked at their backyard. It's your typical northern Michigan forest of pencil trees, just boom, 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 boom. But every angle you look, it's different. It's a different view. And so that's what I wanted to do. In my head immediately, I'm like, okay, now I've been incorporating more forge work, more hammer detail into the metal. And I got a whole number, 1 inch, 1.5 inch tube, round tube, all the way down to 1/2 inch, and just made a forest scene. Hammered it all out, kind of twisted it like trees, and actually welded that into the base of the table and put the slab up on top.
No kidding.
And then the bottom plate, I put Pentwater Lake cut out in the negative space.
Wow.
So, it's like super connected to their cabin and things like that. And, they came to see. I'm like, I got an idea for you. If you love it, buy it. If you hate it, so be it. I'll go up to Pentwater and sell it. Yeah. And sure enough, it connected immediately. I mean, how could it not? It's their backyard.
Like, how big's the table?
No, it's actually it's only 60 inches.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually a little guy, but it's a little cabin. It's going to be a big table in their cabin.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Is it kind of interesting to see that connection of your artistic interest as a high schooler kind of all now come full circle to what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's hilarious. I always think back to the time, like I told you, I'm welding up a Christmas tree in the middle of shop class, and everyone's around me is going, whoa, that's so cool. Wait, can we do that?
Yeah.
And, the instructor's like, of course, he's welding.
Yeah.
He's welding, he's cutting, he's grinding, he's fabricating. Right. That's what this class is.
Yeah, it's rebar, but it's what you're doing to the rebar that
exactly.
counts, right?
So do you use any computer-assisted design tools?
Absolutely.
What you're doing? Was that something you did early on, or something you gravitated to later?
That was something I really just kind of saw as I've been in the industry, and I find it to be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Between the 3D printing, the CNC, now the water jet, all of that.
Wow, okay.
I mean, it all has a time and place.
Yeah.
So you have a water jet now?
No.
Okay.
No. Damn.
Only in the dreams.
Silly boy.
Well, how big is your shop that you operate in?
It's about 900 square feet. About like a 30 by 25.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Do you have people helping you with doing production work?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I brought on a guy part-time.
Okay.
And that's been quite the journey of just figuring out all of those logistics, the payroll, the taxes, the workman's comp, all of that fun.
You're not just an artist anymore. You're a boss and you're an employee. It's with that type of entrepreneurial spirit and drive. I mean, is that something that excites you as well, or is that something that I got to do this in order to achieve my other stuff?
No, I definitely love it.
That's cool.
The whole thing of just, realizing that, one, you're giving somebody else purpose.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And they feel proud to come into work and do this thing. And it's, it's a bigger than yourself type feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any desire to do anything with like stone? Glass? Do you work with these materials?
So I've done a little bit of the glass work, some infills, things like that. I love the glass.
Yeah.
Good compliment.
If I can afford it, I would have furnaces burning every day.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, the stone, I have been figuring out, like, how can I bring that into the workflow more?
Right.
You know, have a metal, stone, wood
Maybe that'll be the
mixture.
water jet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really.
Well, you know, I
cut
keep,
all of it.
in the brain, I keep saying, well, you can cut anything with a water jet. So it's not just metal.
Right. Right.
Wood, it's stone, it's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nimble machine,
Yeah.
but again, the cost, right? But
So do you find most of the wood projects you work with that are commissioned, is it related to like a tree that is
oh yeah.
either there's a personal attachment that the people who commission a project have to that wood?
Yeah, that's the majority of the
No
commissions
kidding.
is I'll actually, I pick up the tree out of their yard, cut it into lumber, and
You
then
plane it at the site?
I cut it on the site.
Okay, yeah. That tool creating those planks, I love watching that thing.
Yeah, that's the Alaskan chainsaw mill.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long
Yeah.
have you had that?
Since I started about, well, actually, I had a self-made version a couple
kidding.
years before I said, okay, I'm going to go full time.
you made your own saw?
The actual sled for
sled,
it.
the
Yeah.
sled, yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, the mill that attaches to the saw.
How big a radius do you go to, or do you travel in to go get the wood?
I've been to Michigan.
Yeah,
That's probably the furthest.
that's a good
Now
clip.
I take the chainsaw mill out to New York for Maker Camp every year, so I go and show the process and everything
Sure.
out there. That luckily I don't need to bring wood
Right.
because we're in the Catskill Mountains.
Right.
Right.
There's a
we
couple
got-
trees out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm interested in how you've evolved as a metalworker and fabricator. What are some things that you're really excited about, like that perhaps you didn't even know existed when you first got into shaping metal?
Well, that's a tough question because every day there's something new that you learn about. And,
Yeah,
I'm 5 years in, and I have people that are like, "Wow, you're doing so good," and all that, and I still feel like a brand new newbie every day.
Sure.
Well,
Well-
but seeing the process of, I've started from templates. You start with a cutoff wheel and an angle grinder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, to see how, you could concept something with that, and it's going to take you all day
Right.
and messy.
Yeah.
But once you have that concept, now you can take it to a laser cut or plasma and
Yeah.
get it done in bulk amounts.
Yeah,
And now you don't even
fast.
need those 7 steps.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really what's opened my eyes the most is
Okay.
being able to rapid manufacture.
Okay.
Wow. How do you get pulled into a maker camp in New York?
Once again, so that came out of that trip with Lincoln.
Okay.
That snowballed into meeting Jimmy DiResta and the whole crew out there, and they said, "Hey, we're going to do this maker camp out in New York. If you have something to contribute, come on out." And sure enough, I'm like, "Hey, I got the chainsaws, and no
awesome.
one's cutting wood, so let's show it off."
Yeah.
And we've been doing that. We didn't do it for the pandemic, but every
Right.
year since.
Is there do the metalheads like kind of bring you? I mean, kind of look at the woodworking being kind of. Do they relate to it? Do they look at it as fascinating, or what's that connection they have with somebody that works with other material outside than the metal?
I think it's really funny because I don't put any limits on trades. I'm a
Right.
metal guy. I'm a wood guy.
Yeah.
I'm a maker. If you
Right.
really want to get down to it, it doesn't matter what the media is. Then there's some people that are like, I've known some welders that are like, I can't touch that wood. Wow. And then
I'll
and
die.
woodworkers that are like, oh, I'm not going to touch that metal. I can't weld. And
Sure you can.
yeah, it's all just a skill.
Yeah.
Really. It's really, if you think about it, like you were talking about the ash earlier.
Yeah.
Well, ash is a little bit tricky to work with because its grain is actually going in an X pattern.
Okay.
Okay, it crisscrosses one another. So like when you cut it into firewood, you actually need a hatchet with you to keep the job going because you need to cut the threads in between after you split it.
Is that why it's so hard?
That's why it's used for shovel handles and hammers and things like that
It's so
because it's
stable.
able to have a little bit of a spring to it
Yeah.
and absorb those impacts. So that's why it's a tool wood.
Yeah.
And but when you think about it like that, now you're thinking grain. Well, you also have that in the form of metal. You've
Right.
got your metal structure.
Absolutely.
And when you get into the knife making, I mean, those guys are hardcore about the heat treating and then tempering and
Yes.
all of that. And it's all just to align the fibers, the crystals, the
Yeah.
grain,
Right.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's just a different media, but almost the same science.
Right.
Interesting.
So when it comes to working with these materials, have you done anything recently with like newer stuff? You'd mentioned some aluminum. Have you worked with different type of alloys as you've pursued this line of work?
This is my newest one. This is actually, I did that in Florida,
Oh, what
which
do you
is
got?
a stainless steel knife.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was really cool.
That doesn't look like stainless, but it is.
Yeah, so that's been etched
Wow.
to bring that black up.
Oh,
Yeah.
And when you're making something like this, are you looking at other people's work first, or is it just something that you're thinking of? This would be really cool to have for my own use.
So when I went to Florida, he's got his shop assistant is a knife maker,
Yeah.
and so he does that on the side. He just does his own knives. And I said, hey, I want to learn what is a bevel. Like what is it? Like everyone sees a knife, but what's the process of getting into it?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, no problem. By the time I got down there, he's got these already laser cut out.
Yeah.
Just bulk them out because that's how he
Right.
does. He gets them laser cut
Yeah.
into the
Sure.
profile he wants, and then you put an edge on it and all of that. So that's what I did there. He handed me that blank that was already cut out. I put the bevel on with the 2x72 grinder. And then we went through the whole process of heat treating, and
It's like about 3/16 stainless,
I believe it's quarter.
quarter inch.
Yeah,
quarter.
yeah. His spec on it is abnormally thick,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the ruggedness of it. It's just a little chopper, backpack type
Sure.
knife.
The third time this week someone's pulled a knife on me, but by far the most pleasant experience.
Living in the suburbs as you do.
Yeah,
You don't know who I run with.
Crystal Lake gangs will get you.
Wow. I don't even have that
Keep
in
it
Texas.
real.
Yeah. Gosh.
So do you have people who come to visit you now that much like you visited them, or is your
yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny how I have more friends from Instagram now that are states away than I do in my hometown.
Well, New Lenox is kind of a small town, though.
Well,
it's gotten bigger?
it's a suburb. It's
Yeah.
too many people jammed into a sleeping box. That's
Right.
what it is.
It's a good visual.
It is. It's
I
a
like
sleeper town,
Yeah.
Everyone works in the city and then goes there to sleep. So
And then
Is
get
that
the trees cut down.
Is it Instagram that important for your business as well? Is that
for me, it has been essential. I really don't know if I would be doing what I'm doing today if I wasn't on Instagram because of that connection, instant connection to the world.
Because people can see exactly what you're doing in
Yep.
the videos and
And if they've got a
photos.
question,
Yeah.
bam, I can answer it, or vice versa. And and the makers kind of find each other and realize that, hey, we're all kind of a little crazy into this whole making thing, and that kind of jives.
Yeah.
When you find another kind crazy, you're like, hey, let's hang out.
That's how clubs form. Well, you're not the first guest we've had talking about how essential Instagram is to their business. And it's interesting how that particular format's evolved to serve small business people, because you've got all kinds of possibilities with showcasing your work, but also, as you said, the instant messaging, and all of a sudden someone's got an order
Absolutely.
in your inbox, and like, good grief.
Yeah.
That was fast.
Yeah.
And it came out of left field.
Yeah, and if someone sees the work that you're doing on something else, a silly little fabrication of something, and then all of a sudden, they're a landscape designer. Well, they've got a client that needs railings.
Yeah.
And so, bam, there's a job there. And that's just kind of keeps snowballing more and more.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you do a lot of on-site work?
Occasionally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, railings, that's kind of just like easy money,
Right.
Yeah,
but people are interested in that. So when people come to you with some of these commission projects, mostly tables, what is the work cover?
Yeah, tables, a lot of shelf type systems, mantles are a common one.
Yes. A lot of homes don't come with those anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, so all of those, all of the things you're going to add into your house.
Yeah.
The accoutrements.
Yep, exactly.
Nice.
I've done, side tables.
Saw a clock on there.
Oh, yeah, clocks. I mean, you name it.
Right.
What's been the most challenging project that someone's come to you with?
Some of the custom ones. The one I was talking about with the pent water table, that was like, I knew what I needed to do, and that was awkwardly easy. There's one on my feed that is a sheet of 1/4-inch steel, and in my head, it was like, well, we can just shape this easy peasy. It's just sheet of 1/4-inch steel.
Yeah, right.
So
weighs a
You
lot
pick
of
it up or do they deliver it?
Oh, I picked it up.
Okay,
Oh,
all
yeah.
right.
Yeah. I'm on that.
Did
You
you?
know, I order from the big dogs, but they don't deliver.
Okay,
Because I'm,
gotcha.
residential area.
Right.
So, yeah, I got to go to the steel yard.
That's
Wow,
sizable.
okay.
Yep.
Wow.
So this thing was
That's great.
a 4x8 sheet, and I cut it down to about 30 some inches high, and about 7. Yeah, it was a 9-foot table, so it was 7 foot long, and I curved it into an S curve.
Wow.
But what I did was I cut out image of a forest.
Okay.
So the steel looks like these big trees, mimicking the client's backyard that had bay windows looking out to.
Good grief.
Yeah, and that was probably the most challenging because I needed to figure out how am I going to bend this.
Right.
It turns out that the best answer was using heat. A sledgehammer and everything else.
Like a torch or?
Putting slits into it, actually cutting grooves and then re-welding it using that overheating process
Okay.
on the backside of where I wanted bent.
Okay.
And just went strips up and down, and really just overheated it so much that it bent where I wanted.
Okay.
A happy surprise on that one was it actually deflected on the bottom too. So the tips of it come up a little bit versus the middle, but it worked out perfectly because it gives a nice, beautiful shadow line on the bottom.
Oh, wow.
Good.
Wow.
Good. Nice when you get that little bit of serendipity in the job.
Yeah, those are nice.
Yeah, very cool. What's been the biggest surprise for you, Ron, in terms of how things have progressed with your business? What's been, you've got that particular job, but what's overall, what's been the biggest surprise for you?
Biggest surprise is the tables that I sell online. Most simple thing possible. It's not that crazy of a product, but the places that it's gone into is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
What do you mean?
I've got tables there in MIT. I've got some in Google. I've got some at Plaid, which is a company that connects the payment systems,
Right.
Tech companies out in California, movie studios. I don't know if I'm going to lock it down, but I was just requested an 18-foot bar by the Air Force for one of their
Okay.
bases. Wow. And I don't know how that's going to work. They asked me to sign some crazy releases to make sure there was no foreign tracking. I'm like, you're talking to an American here, so you're good.
Well, you never know if ChatGPT nowadays.
We have this list of 20 questions you have to answer about 1990 sitcoms to prove your citizenship.
To prove you're an actual American.
Yep.
So, do they ever explain how they came across your work?
All those parties?
It's all Etsy.
Etsy, wow.
Yep. And that's the amazing part is that a lot of people, I say, oh, I sell my stuff on Etsy, and they go, oh, that's cool. No, it's really cool because you don't realize that, the director of a Fortune 500 company is sitting on Etsy going, we could use that in the
Literally
conference
making
room.
me think Bob Iger at Disney's right now is on his phone, just kind of like,
Yeah.
that's a nice table.
Ronders,
Good
I want
spot
it.
over there.
I've never heard of a guy named Ronders before.
Yep. Yeah, that's the biggest eye opener is that everyone's sitting there on their phones looking at stuff. Yeah. So whether it's on my, this year I just finally got my website up to sell items. I got the store running, the e-commerce side of it and everything.
Okay.
And so that's working out well, but I'm using both of them, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me because Etsy brings in more traffic than I could ever dream of paying for. I'm sure you guys have seen it at some point. whether you watch TV or not, you've probably seen one of the Etsy commercials.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, I have daughters. They are my Etsy commercial.
Yep.
Dad, have you seen this? Yeah, for sure.
That's incredible.
And the Pinterest boards.
Okay.
That's a big one. That brings people to the website.
So
that
where
brings
did
them,
you start? Like, did you start kind of using all these channels, or did you concentrate on one at first?
You know, I started back in 2013 making a bath board, and that is a wood plank that's live edge that goes across your bathtub.
Oh, wow.
As simple as that. And that was really kind of the eye-opener, because myself and the family was like, people keep buying these.
And literally, it's one of those things like they put a candle on and maybe a book or something like that.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. But, you know, there's a lot of people that really find their bath time as like that's their moment.
That's
to
their zen
unwind.
moment, right?
And you might be
know?
closer to like figuring out like certain like at-home patterns for consumers than I would ever have a.
You know what
idea about.
the wildest thing is? You know, my biggest month all year long, March,
For
the wall bars.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
Have you
But
figured
if
out
you think
why?
about it, you know, what did, you know, like Lowe's and Home Depot, what have they been pumping the past 2-3 months? Storage, paint, new home type.
Oh, gearing up for like
Gear up.
spring
Everyone's
stuff
everyone's in winter. They're kind of coming out of that lull and getting ready
fine?
for spring, and said, "Hey, we want to start this business. We're going to start that school project, whatever. Okay, let's put a desk in that room."
To me, that's like the crazy stuff fabricators know. Like, you talk to them long enough, and you'll get something like
Some
how do you
market.
how do you know this market like
Yeah.
stuff that people are probably scratching their heads about in some business class somewhere?
Yeah, right.
Tracking seasonal trends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something that you concentrate on now?
Well, you know, it just kind of happens.
Yeah.
You just look at the numbers over the years, and you go, "Oh, well,
You look at your
oddly enough."
spreadsheets.
Yeah,
Do you build
go-
for inventory at any point?
Yeah, you always kind of keep up on the inventory, but that's also the nice part is that these bars, everything is kind of made to order.
Okay,
They are standard,
right.
and we could pump up inventory if we wanted to.
Wow.
But you don't want to be stuck with it.
Yeah, I don't want to be stuck with specific sizes and things like that. So it's easier to just kind of keep it on a rotation, a weekly thing. And it also keeps my guy employed.
Yeah.
You know, there's been times when I think, like when sales go low,
Right.
I'm like, well, I don't really need them this week. So I got to find something for them.
So when you're talking about that seasonal work and so forth, does it ever come to you like, well, what if we tried this? Do you ever like just sort of toss a line in the water and see if somebody bites on it, or is it pretty much do what they already want?
So I've got the main bar with the turnbuckle brackets. That was the first one.
Right.
And then once people started hitting on that, that bar is perfect for the person in an apartment, a small shop, things like that.
Right, okay.
But then I've started getting request after request of, can it fold?
Oh.
Okay, people with even less use for a bar, but they still want that ability to host,
Fold it up.
but fold it up. So that's when I came up with the folding design, and that has been quite a hit. People like it quite a bit. And then this last year, I came out with a dining table because I had enough requests. People said, hey, I want a folding option, but I don't want to sit against the wall. And then that's the funny thing is, I've always thought, how many people want to sit facing the wall when they eat their meal?
Right.
But a lot of people, they don't even care. They
Right.
just, the small kitchen, they want it,
Right.
The clip I've got on the website homepage of the wall bar, that's me bringing it in to the first client that ever bought it.
Oh.
It was a crazy custom request. And it's your classic Chicago bungalow. You walked in from the back door and bam, your kitchen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the thing. He was pressed for space.
Right.
How do we get an eating space? A quick thing to get breakfast and out the door.
Right.
Well, more and more people are finding ways to live in smaller and smaller spaces.
Yeah.
Tiny houses and so
Yeah.
forth.
Jeez,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
Well-
you got kids looking to rent a place. You know that.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of affordabilities.
We might be renting out the podcast studio pretty soon.
Right. Right. Well,
Can you
little
look
extra
at
cash.
to making us a coffee bar around here? I think we might be able to.
Can you do a Murphy bed in the sun?
Yeah.
No, it's hard. Well, it's hard to find space that you can afford, but it's now it's kind of all the rage to make the very most of the very, the least amount of space that you can.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I invested in the fabricate or the digital fabrication side. So I got CNC for the bars.
Okay.
And with that folding option, a lot of companies like to have that as a sign, secondary sign. You can put their logo on there and that type of setup.
Oh, wow.
So you're discovering all kinds of end uses, all kinds of products that people are asking for
off of essentially a shelf.
Yeah.
When it boils down to it, it's a shelf. But we find ways of making it work for people.
Yeah. Do you have a wish list in terms of what you'd love for the shop?
Well, I've always toyed with the idea of what would it look like if I had 20 people working here type thing. And I don't know if I'd ever want to get that big with it.
Right.
I like the smaller scale of it. I could see 2 to 3 employees type size. And a little bit more space. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Well, and you've got, like you said before, you've got production work, then you've got the one-off, commission type things.
Yeah.
I suppose having 2 or 3 employees would lend itself more to the production work. But you never know. I mean, you could get a really skilled person or 2 in there.
Yeah.
They're also able to do what you do.
Absolutely.
In terms of the creation of the one-offs. What process, if you could, just boil it down to one, what process that you work with right now do you most enjoy doing?
Process in the sense of
like welding, cutting, bending, cutting wood, forming wood.
Each thing has its own little enjoyment. When I'm cutting wood, that is magical in itself. Just revealing that grain, showing what's inside of what everyone saw as a big log, and then all of a sudden you look inside and you're like, whoa, that's not just a log.
That's 80 years worth of growth right there.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see exactly where was it a drought year, where was a flood year. All of that history is right there in the growth rings. But then I'm also feel the same way when I'm, hood down.
Yeah.
And after everything's been prepped and everything's set and ready, and I can just fire off that production mode of, zap, zap, zap. And
That's cool.
Gareth has a video from your Instagram account. You're walking around. What'd you do to your leg?
Yeah, I wish I could say like took a gnarly spill on the mountain or something. No, I walked in from the shop and hit a piece of ice at the front door.
Oh, so you didn't hit yourself with a chainsaw.
No.
You hit a piece of ice.
Nothing cool. I slipped. I slipped, and I'm an old man now, so I guess I break bones when I slip.
So you have a lot of padding in your I guess what would that be called?
So that was like a
medical peg.
That was a hands-free crutch.
Still has his leg.
No, but I saw like the padding there, and it looked like it was some kind of decorative boot you were wearing.
Yeah.
Well, when I was watching this, I was like, I didn't notice, and I had to look at your leg to make sure it was a prosthetic.
Is it fake?
Yeah.
I think Dan's come up with your next product, a medical peg.
I don't know.
Or decorative steel boots. I don't know. It had a sense of flair about it. There's a nice puffy white shirt.
No limits,
could have really made it stand out.
So that didn't set you back then. You're still walking around the shop and getting
I was still working. I had at this point in time I was still so I don't know. I was either out of that shop. Either way, I was still connected with a guy from that shop, and he was just awesome. He said, dude, let me know whatever you need. And he's just an awesome fabricator. He can rip through, fabrication while he's sleeping. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, he came and helped me with the metal side of things.
That's
and
awesome.
Everywhere I couldn't lift. But then that hand-free crutch, that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, no, it looked like it was working for you.
I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Looks like you spared your leg, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I know when it's about to rain.
That's one of the many benefits.
You're becoming very close to the trees you work with.
There's any rings in his leg.
We'll make a comic book reference right now. You're Mr. Swamp Thing.
Nice.
But yeah, on that note, I guess that pretty much draws it to a close.
Once you're making comic book references.
I literally was trying to explain to my wife, what were we talking about? I think it was some type of like Batman mythology and whenever his like rogues gallery. Yeah, it's not worth the time.
No,
and she didn't care much either. So.
All right, play the music. No.
Yeah, all right. So thanks, Ron, for joining us, and thanks for
having me.
Not only, I don't know how many people have stickers of themselves.
That's pretty great.
Ron does.
But now we have stickers of you.
Yeah.
So we're very grateful.
And this work piece that actually I just broke, but I have enough wherewithal to fix. Thanks a lot.
Well, where
enjoyed
can we
the
find
conversation
you online? I mean, we talked about it, but
Ronders.com or Ronders Wood and Metal Works.com or just on Instagram, which is all spelled out Ronders, DOTCOM.
It's funny. We were like trying to figure out how to pronounce your name, and we're looking at your website. We're like, oh, it's just Dyrcz.
Actually, you spend enough time in the Chicagoland area or the Midwest. The shorter it is, the closer you're going to be able to get a good
it's just the no vowels that gets everybody.
Right. But if it's like Stavertlik or something where it's got like 14 letters with no vowels, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Too many letters is always a challenge for me.
The worst I ever got was dry rot. Ron Dry Rot. And I'm like, no, you're pretty far off there.
Dryrot.com's not going to move a lot of wall, wall paraphernalia and tables. So that was a good call on your part.
Let's just not do that one.
So thank you for joining us. It's
been a pleasure.
Once again,
it was been awesome. Thanks for having me.
We had a great conversation, and we appreciate you tuning in. If you want to send us some comments, please do. You can find us at the Fabricator Podcast.
Podcast at thefabricator.com.
All right. It's been a couple weeks.
Podcast at thefabricator.com.
One more time. Podcast at thefabricator.com. Please rate, review, subscribe to the Fabricator Podcast wherever you get your podcast. Local grocery store, wherever that may be.
Yeah.
And please recommend us to your friends. So we can start affording things like coffee bars in this nice podcast.
Yes, so we can have Ron back to do a job.
Yes.
Wrap the room.
There you go.
That's right.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us again, and good day.
Have a great day.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited with the help of Brandon Geyer. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Dana Weicker, Mary Diamond, Mike Owens, and me, Sarah Spring. Thank you for listening.